All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Look, if you're a senior corporate executive, you have probably seen safety programs pitched as just this necessary evil, right? A sunk compliance cost. Well, today, we're completely reframing that narrative. We're going to look at how modern industrial safety is actually a critical, absolutely essential driver of your corporate financial viability and long-term operational efficiency.
I want you to look at this staggering figure, $1.27 million. According to the National Safety Council, that's the average total cost for a single worker fatality. No way, right? And severe injuries? Those average around $43,000 each. When you view safety through this purely economic lens, it becomes instantly clear. Preventing incidents isn't just about doing the right thing. It is a fundamental pillar of corporate financial protection.
And this brilliantly illustrates the classic iceberg metaphor in safety economics. Those visible, direct costs, your workers' comp premiums, the insured medical payouts, that's literally just the tip of the iceberg. Lurking right below the surface are these massive, hidden costs that are quietly draining your daily productivity. We're talking ruined products, damaged equipment, the overtime you have to pay to catch up, and that incredibly steep learning curve of getting replacement workers up to speed.
So, here's our briefing agenda for today. We'll start with the true cost of safety, then look at catastrophic liability and regulation, tracking lost workforce productivity, strategic hazard capital triage, mapping risk to revenue, and finally, safety as a strategic pillar. Section 1. The true cost of safety, beyond the tip of the iceberg. Let's get into it. When an accident actually happens out there on the floor, your financial bleeding goes way, way beyond just an insurance premium. You're paying the wages of employees who literally stop what they're doing to watch the emergency, right? Plus the supervisors who have to drop everything to investigate. And more importantly, you absorb the massive cost of workforce turnover. To mitigate all of this, you absolutely must design effective, highly accessible safety training programs tailored to your diverse industrial workforce. That's how you ensure replacement workers can safely and quickly reach full production capacity without missing a beat.
Moving on to Section 2, catastrophic liability and regulation, the external threat.
It's a harsh reality, but the regulatory landscape is practically written in blood. Take the catastrophic 1984 Bhopal disaster in India, which tragically killed over 2,500 people. That event permanently blurred the lines between internal worker safety and external environmental protection. It proved that an internal process failure can instantly become a massive public disaster, which deeply intertwined the mandates of OSHA and the EPA. Following events like Bhopal and the 1989 Phillips petrochemical explosion, sweeping mandates like process safety management were born. It literally forced a major shift away from just reactive hazard fixing toward proactive systems management.
Now, when it comes to OSHA, as an executive, you've got to understand what we call the first commandment of safety law, the General Duty Clause. This clause is a huge deal. It mandates that employers provide a workplace free from recognized serious hazards. It acts as the ultimate regulatory backstop. Think about it. Even if OSHA doesn't have a specific, highly technical standard for some brand new machine or hazard in your facility, they can and absolutely will use this clause to hold corporate leadership legally and fiscally accountable.
Navigating these rules means you really need to know the playing field. OSHA structures its regulations into basically two buckets: horizontal and vertical standards. Horizontal standards are broad. They apply across all general industries. Think basic fire extinguisher rules. Vertical standards, on the other hand, are highly targeted to just a single, specific industry, like the rules specifically made for the construction sector. Knowing exactly which ones apply to your diverse operations is absolutely critical for proactive corporate planning.
Furthermore, let's talk about environmental transparency laws under SARA. Your chemical reporting thresholds are incredibly strict here. You've got to report toxic releases over 10,000 pounds. But get this, for complex chemical mixtures, if an ingredient is a known carcinogen, that reporting threshold drops drastically to just 0.1%. It's wild. And because occupational illnesses often have these super long latency periods, exposure and medical surveillance data must be retained for 30 years past an employee's tenure. So the actions you take today literally carry liability for decades down the line.
Okay, Section 3, tracking lost workforce productivity, the paper trail.
I know these acronyms might look a bit like alphabet soup, but trust me, they matter immensely to your bottom line. OSHA relies heavily on the DART and DAFTWE incidence rates to actually prioritize their programmed inspections. And why is that? Because these metrics don't just track severe accidents. They track restricted workdays and job transfers. Basically, they represent the holistic degradation of your workforce productivity. If your rates are running higher than the national industry average, you are basically painting a giant target on your own back. Let's look at the actual compliance paperwork for a second, the OSHA Form 300. Notice those specific columns for job transfer or restriction and days away from work. When your managers are filling this out, they are documenting the exact days your operations ran at less than 100% capacity because of safety failures. It is literally a ledger of your lost efficiency.
Moving to Section 4, Strategic Hazard Capital Triage, Deploying Financial Resources.
Look, any safety manager who demands the elimination of every single workplace hazard indiscriminately, they're being a bit naive. As an executive, you have to use the hazard triage model. Step 1, you ignore what is physically infeasible to fix. Step 2, you identify what is physically feasible but economically impossible, like, building expensive elevated walkways over every single low-traffic crosswalk on a massive campus. You must aggressively target that third category, hazards that are both physically and economically feasible to correct. That is exactly how you deploy limited capital for maximum impact.
Section 5, Mapping Risk to Revenue, the Analytical Approach.
The old saying is true, you can't manage what you don't measure. FMEA, or Failure Modes and Effects Analysis, is this incredibly vital, highly quantitative analytical tool used by reliability engineers. It basically allows your management team to mathematically trace how one single tiny component failure can snowball into a catastrophic overall plant shutdown. By doing this long before an accident ever happens, you shift your entire organization into a proactive systems management mindset, directly mapping physical risks right back to revenue outcomes.
And this pairs beautifully with the famous Swiss cheese theory. It's a great reminder for leadership that a multi-million-dollar loss is rarely just one single worker making a mistake. Instead, it happens when multiple layers of defense fail simultaneously, when the holes in your Swiss cheese align perfectly. Most importantly, it shows that latent distal causes, which is really just a fancy way of saying poor corporate policies or rushed production schedules, are usually what perfectly align with the proximal causes, like the active physical hazards right there on the floor.
Finally, Section 6, Safety as a Strategic Pillar, Human Capital ROI.
You know, you can build all the fancy engineering controls in the world, but if your workforce doesn't actually believe that you value them, the whole system fails. As the source material points out, if management preaches safety but then turns around and accelerates production at the expense of those very safety protocols, the psychological strategy instantly collapses. Building an authentic safety culture, backed up by really targeted training for your diverse workforce, is absolutely how you reduce costly worker turnover and stop your employees from doing things like bypassing machine guards just to meet their daily quotas.
As we wrap up this explainer today, I want to leave you with a real executive challenge. Take a hard look at your own operations. Ask yourself, is your safety program just a sunk compliance cost? Are you just paying the bare minimum to keep OSHA off your back? Or are you strategically investing in safety to prevent those massive hidden costs of lost productivity and turnover? Because by leveraging safety proactively, you are securing not just your basic legal compliance, but the long-term, highly efficient operational viability of your entire enterprise. So what's your next move?